So you may or may not know that Viv originally trained in dramatic art, and was involved in theater, and did set design.
I know, yes, it was.
And has always also dealt and worked in ceramics and textiles. And also that, which you may or may not know, is although a lot of people find this work enchanting and quite funny, there's a very, very serious side to what she does as well, a highly intellectual side to her aestheticism.
Gosh,
so,
darling, I'm completely flattered.
Without much ado, so welcome, Viv. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
joining
Randy. And thank you for coming. I feel like this is the most intimate, gentle little moment. And I might dine out on that intellectual moment for ages, because it's sort of, I mean, it feels like that's sort of true behind the whole immediate sense of joy and colour and bounce of all the work, there's probably an underplay of other things going on. So I hope in one way the work is quite layered, and the more you look at it, the more you will find out and see and go on a little wander through each work. And it's true, I did study drama, and I was absolutely shithouse. And I don't know why I did that, but I did. I think I was quite shy, and I thought I needed to get out there and do it, but it took me a very long time to sort of get it together. And I suppose in one way, I'd always drawn a lot when I was little, and then there was, I don't know what happened to me, I sort of stopped. I think I just forgot about it and went off and did other things, which was a bit of a shame, because I was thinking about when I was having to do this talk, what it was that made me feel whole and alive and with a real purpose as I toddle through life, whatever that is. And it's actually the making of work and the intensity of the focus of making that, whether it's drawing or sewing or clay, but that beautiful sense of having this space to explore, which is such a privilege. It feels like such a privilege to be able to do that. And I think when I was at drama school, I think I wanted to sort of projectile vomit quite a lot. And being in front of people just made me want to turn inside out, which you're probably noticing a little bit of that now. So I used to drink quite a bit of Sambuca, actually, just to get me through. But no. No, it gives me alcoholic flush now. So, but we had to do some performance pieces, and I think I actually made my own sets out of cardboard and made these big creations, like whole worlds for me to be in, and I had to write my little script. But it was actually in that, all of a sudden, the revelation of the hand, mind, the connection of cutting, making, just doing it, and without a plan, but just making it. And I actually went, shit, this is actually what it's about. This actually feels really good. It made me feel really excited. There was a sort of a vague knowledge of what I might want, but the whole thing of intuition taking over and finding a way to do it and really exploring and experimenting. And I think I sort of had a vague thing of, God, this is it. And then I sort of promptly forgot and got into other things and performing. But then I sort of, over time later on, I started making little wooden things and wire things. And then eventually I got it together after children and sort of about, what felt like a million years later, clay. And I am self-taught in the sense that I remember desperately wanting to put my hands into some clay and make some stuff. And I felt like I'd come home. I felt this immense sense of it being are sort of not easy, but really familiar, even though I had no idea about it. And I really needed to find who I was and what I wanted to say, and it allowed me to say stuff that maybe I was too nervous and too hopelessly a chicken, I think, of not actually saying what I really wanted to say. I could actually say it in my work, and it allowed me to do it. And I think when I first started, there was more of a narrative, and I'd make observations during a day, or a feeling would pop out, and I'd make something utilizing what was around me and what was bobbling in my brain, which at times could be hysterically awful or lovely or whatever. And using visual cues from sign writing, which I really love. Like, I really love the word. The word is really important. I don't think I could actually make anything without the word coming into it somewhere. And it's not because it actually says exactly what I'm thinking, because it's only just a little part of that, but it's just the words are really beautiful. I mean, as in, they say something I need to say, but I like the visual thing of a word, a letter, and sign writing. So that comes into it a lot as well. But with this body of work, I feel like I have stepped out in some way. I feel like at 63, I've finally found myself. I feel like I've been a bit brave. Making the big work was really bloody exciting, actually. It was such a freeing, amazing thing to make something that felt enormous. Because I think I got really twiddly and little, and I get really focused, and I'd be here going, oh, that looks good there, and I'll tweak that there, and oh my God, I think I nearly drove myself completely insane. But the bigger work, all of a sudden, I felt like my whole body was involved. And it wasn't just my mind and the intuition or anything. It was actually the physicality. There were little delicate bits of the sewing of the waves in that one, or the writing, or the bosoms that are flying, which sort of, for me, have a whole sense of freedom and power, and that's where I want to go. I mean, to actually feel like I'm going shoo. But the big ones it was quite freeing. The ceramics, to a degree, although with that one there and the mask, there became a sort of more painterly kind of quality to the mask, where it wasn't just a block of colour. Often I would paint things and it'd be more a block of colour to try and express something. That became a more painterly thing, and I think with the bigger ones here, that it felt like a bigger painting to me, in a way, a placing on of things and taking off. And I think with the clay, I started to feel a bit restricted, because you had the whole process of making it, drying, firing it, then glazing it, painting on it. And I started to get very overwhelmed with the process. It felt so stodgy. I felt like I was walking in mud a bit. Like, it just felt like, oh, this is like this thing, and I'm like that. And I just wanted this whole sense of being spontaneous. So that's when the soft sculptures and everything started to evolve, because I wanted to actually continue the language of what was happening with the ceramics into something that for me was a lot freer to make. And I could cut out bits, I could snip them off, I could think, fuck, that looks absolutely bloody awful, and I could chop it. And I then could do something else, and that was incredibly freeing. I felt completely alive. It was so exciting, instead of waiting for this long process, to actually just have something I could stuff and snip and sew and then think, God, that looks awful. And I have been living with Ross for years, and I've watched him paint in this lovely, loose, highly intellectual thought, Yeah, really, you know, but I had watched him for years, you know, painting this love, and then he'd paint over it and scrape it off. And I thought, God, that is just completely in the moment, utterly free. And it was just beautiful. And I thought, I want to do that. I want to have a bit of that stuff. So that's when the work, the soft fabric sculpture actually evolved from that sense of actually wanting to be free. And I bloody well felt like it. Like I actually felt quite free, and it all felt very in the moment as well, because I could change it if I wanted to. And what they're saying is, I don't know, all the things for me feel like a little journey. Each one feels like a journey. I feel like I'm traveling in it. It's trying to say something that I desperately want to say, but maybe can't quite find what it is. I never really have a plan. I don't really know what I'm beginning with. It might be just a little seed or an idea, and then I feel like I should stop and wait for someone to pop in. A little seed or an idea, it could be something I really need to say. And all of it is, all of it is personal, and all of it is a kind of a, I don't know, a little journey, a little thing. Off I go again. I think I was rambling on, actually. I was just telling them about how these evolved from the ceramics. They felt free and exciting to make. And I felt like I found a whole other language that I could immerse myself in. And I'm so tickled you bought that. Thank you. Yeah, it's lovely. Does anyone have a question? Does anyone want to throw something at me? Do I do it like a preliminary? No, I don't. And it's sort of, well, I guess I'm quite interested in the thought of painting. I don't know what it is that stopped me. I don't know, because maybe I am, you know, that it's been a process of learning for me, or just doing anyway, that hasn't really come into it. And I never do, like I would never do a little sketch to say this is what I'm doing. I just start. So I never do that. I just go, okay, this is sort of where I want to go and what I'm going to make, and I just do it. And it evolves as I do it. But I actually have started doing a bit of drawing and things, but it's actually through necessity to make myself feel completely sane when we've been going on Ross's teaching trips out into the wilderness. Because I normally drive everyone around and I'm really rude, and so but I wouldn't mind. I mean, I think with the wall things, it's interesting because I feel like there is that thing that they could transform into something else.
So the process isn't that different.
Yeah.
Depending on how you
Yeah. No, I think it sort of isn't. And I think that I think I really love the tactility of the blankets and the fabric. They feel really nice in my hand, and that lends itself to what actually happens with it. And I like that hands-on kind of thing.
But when you go out to the country with
Ross,
and you say you start drawing,
yeah.
Are you drawing the landscape?
Yeah, no, I'm drawing the landscape. Yeah, it's a way to keep myself sane, I think. But in that kind of that being in the landscape and drawing, and I've done some little, gouache interiors for myself because I thought, God, I'm bloody boring. I think I need to do something else as well, just for me. In being in there's the thing of actually having something to draw in front of you is sort of really relaxing. Well, no, that sounds mad because all this comes from my head. So you're constantly coming up with, I mean, even though it doesn't feel like an effort, you're coming up with the idea as you go. I mean, it evolves, and you know, do snip bits here and you add something on, because there's still a whole juggling and a playing with all the materials to make it work as a whole overall thing, and not just some funny idea I've had. But having been out and having something in front of you where you're just sitting and looking, and then you draw it or paint it, feels remarkably relaxing and even meditative.
But it's not actually a reference point for you to come back and do the work.
No, it doesn't interest me in the slightest. It's just an adventure. But no, because I need to say more than that. And I don't know how, I mean, so...
But it's interesting, isn't
Yeah.
it, that you go out, because I know you've been out of country quite a lot.
Yeah.
And I know that you do a lot of other things to assist while you're
Yeah.
out of country,
Yeah.
driving, maybe
Yeah.
some cooking, maybe some prep. And then really, if you sit back and do some drawing, that's your time to
Yeah.
relax.
Yeah.
But that it seems in no way to influence when you come back and do this work, which is really all internal process.
It is. It is and I think that's where I find the joy in my...
It hasn't yet.
Yeah.
But it could.
It could.
Yeah.
It could.
Yeah, but the joy for me is actually the internal process of coming up with something that feels like me, if you know.
Do you think sometimes that the people you interact with during those journeys makes an impression on you, and then that actually is referenced in your work? Subconsciously? Because you're not going out with necessarily first year students just learning. Oftentimes, people who want to go with Ross, they have been painting for a while. They consider themselves serious, long-time painters.
They do.
Yes, which can actually be quite trying.
That's why I took up doing it.
So it's kind of an interesting thought process, isn't it, when you think about the manipulations of interacting with everybody on those trips regarding painting techniques, imagery, and then how that might come back and filter into what you do.
I don't know if it does, in the sense that I think I use a lot of avoidance tactics on those trips. And I do a lot of hiding, and I do a lot of groaning, and I'm a very cynical person at times, but I think, I don't know, well, maybe I come back and I think, oh, thank God I'm in my own space and I can actually make something that feels like me. I think that's it. And I hope there's no one here that goes on those trips. It sounds very rude. But no, I don't know what else I feel...
Because it's hard. The trips are hard work. Not that you don't love them or you don't love going after, but it is hard work. And so once you're finished that hard work and that job, then as you say, you go back to your own studio, you have a little bit of time to breathe and reflect and just come into your own.
Well, it is, and I think, well, I also think that in the last year we've actually moved, and we are living in Victoria and close to Melbourne, and life feels quite different. It feels, for me anyway, it feels quite rich, and there's lots to look at, and I can walk through the world and I feel a part of something else that's bigger. I found the country really quite isolating. I would much rather look at a bluebell in a way, for me, that was more evocative than a gum tree. I just like being in contact with people, and I really realised that. I just want to be around people more, and that made my heart skip a little, and I felt more myself in years, in a way. So I think this body of work sort of comes from that shift of where I'm actually spending the majority of my time, and how I feel about myself. And in my wrinkled, droopy bosomed moment, I think I've finally found out who I am, and it's taken a long time to do that.
But you also mentioned your love of words.
Yeah.
And so by that, do I take it that you like to read and you read in a wide variety?
Oh yeah, I read all that. I'd shrivel up without a book. Yeah.
And do you have a particular genre that you like to read, or you read a wide variety of material?
I read literature. No, I just like books. I just love reading, and I like looking. I actually like being in the world, to look at what's happening and noticing little minuscule beautiful things, or do you know what I mean?
Can I just pick up on what Randy, you were talking about words, and Myf has got a lot of stuff which she'll tell you about out of signage, so could you talk about that?
I didn't talk about signage.
Signage, matchboxes, the design stuff, and could you also talk about some influences perhaps?
Thank you for putting me on track. Quite right. Because I'm not used to this stuff. I do like signage. I love signs. I love the shapes. I like how they sit out there. I like things that are older, I suppose. You know, that lovely sort of, it comes 40s or 60s or 50s. I mean, I was a little child in the 60s. I really love colour and that sort of pop kind of thing. I think that's, without me really knowing that, I think it sort of has surfaced in my work. Like I look at that and I think, oh my God, that looks like the trousers I wore when I was sort of 6. So I think that sort of come up. And I suppose I've always looked at, like I grew up in a family that had art around it a lot. And I suppose I've always been looking, but I've always looked at, you know, artists and other painters, and I probably look at, I wonder if I look at painters more than I look at sculptors. I mean, the sculptor that made me quite excited was Nicky de Saint-Phal, who, you know, does quite amazing things, and I like Leger, and another one, a later one I've really come to like is Rose Wiley, because she has this mad space and it's splot and it's there and it's, she's fantastic and it's really there. And I suppose Matisse, because I think they're quite beautifully structured things. And all of that is an influence, and traveling a bit comes into it. So it's just everyday kind of things that I get.
Signage is also an indication of changing times.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So when you start, if you look at signage from the 50s and 60s, it looks hand-painted.
Yeah, but
it shows
that's right.
how we dressed, how we wore our hair, the makeup we wore, the products that we were interested in purchasing or they were trying to get us to purchase. And then as you travel through 60 years and see the sophistication of modern signage and what it references now, and even signs on the bus stops that rotate. And
I know.
If you go to the Coca-Cola sign that's been there for 65 or more years, and the changing cultural expectations of what's on that Coca-Cola sign, it brings a lot of history into what you're doing.
Yeah, well, I suppose so, and I suppose I'm drawn to things that I suppose feel a bit older, I guess, because and even though the hand is not involved in it, but you know, sign writers actually used to write signs, and I think on a design level, it feels nice to look at the older signs. They feel nice to see. Joe, did you want to ask me a question? Because you look like you did before.
Oh, yeah, I did. But you've sort of covered a little bit about your family upbringing and art and the environment around you. And you must have absorbed a lot, even though you didn't go to art school. And I don't know if people know quite what your mum did and all that. Maybe you'd like to tell us about that.
Oh, she was a director of regional galleries and worked for the Ministry for the Arts in Victoria. And I was, as a child, I did meet many artists, and I was surrounded by that whole world, which was pretty magical, actually. It felt. Oh, I can't even tell you, because I just remember a lot of the time just.
Well-known artists at that time.
Yeah, I guess so. You know, Fred Williams, and they weren't people that I sort of, you know. I mean, I don't think I really consciously went, oh my God, because I had no bloody idea. They were just other people who were doing interesting things. but I suppose a lot of that, I don't know, it put me off actually. I think I thought I couldn't do any of that stuff, so I never went to art school. It was completely male dominated. It did feel like that. It felt quite a male world and very much dominated. And I think that part of my work is actually about trying to find my voice in that world still, because that still goes on. It still feels like quite a male dominated world, the art world, to a degree.
Was unusual in that sense, wasn't she?
Yeah.
She's making forays.
Yeah.
Her and Betty Churcher.
Yeah, her and Betty Churcher, that's right. But I mean, that sort of, you know, at the time I think I must have been really dreamy and never really picked up on the nuance of all of that. I think I just waffled on a lot.
Was it artworks at home?
Yeah, all the time. Tuxons, Ginger Riley, the pink parrot that's now at the art, you know, Robert Hunter, Rosalie Gascoigne.
Not many kids got up with that on the walls.
No, I was really privileged and lucky. It felt a normal part of life to have all of that.
Which is terrific, because it makes you think, it makes you love art, but it also makes you see that art is a part of everyone's.
Well, it's just part of your life, as it should be.
It's nothing along those lines. It's just an everyday part. It should be everybody's life.
Well, that's right, because it gives you, to actually have that in your life, sort of offers up this other world, this other visual thing that's there. It's not. I mean, no one has to have art or paintings, but or sculpture or whatever, but most of the time they have it because it actually gives you something. Like it allows you to feel something inside, or a visual thing that makes you feel excited by it, and it gives meaning to life. I mean, it bloody does to make it, but it does just to have it around. It gives a richness to life.
Takes you outside of yourself.
Yeah. And
those are the first things you see when you're a kid. They're pretty complex artworks too.
Yeah.
To evolve your way of looking at things.
Yeah. And maybe that's without realizing it. Like I always sort of went, oh gosh, I wish I'd gone to art school. I was at drama school and I'd see all the art students walk through and I'd think, God, I think I'm in the wrong spot. But I never I thought, oh shit, I've got to follow through on something, so I'll finish my drama degree. But at the same time, maybe I was too sensitive, I don't know, and maybe in the looking of stuff and the reading anyway, there was a funny thing happening where it was I was absorbing it anyway.
Or a theatricality and there's a theatricality in the works themselves.
Yeah.
They, to some degree, could be theatre sets of some sort. So it's not like you didn't take anything from that experience of doing drama.
No, I think that's right. But I think that, I think each piece is a world I want someone to inhabit. And I think that, I did while I was making it. I felt each work is really different. They sort of look the same because they're bright, but they're all quite different. And I think that I wanted to they're little worlds, and they are like theatrical things, because that just is how they eventuate. I'd feel bored if I didn't do it. I'd feel sad. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say, why did you pick that the sun came out?
Because that's how it felt. I actually felt by making this body of work, I'd actually really found something, and it felt incredibly light, and I felt like I've really felt like I'd found this thing inside myself, and I don't know if it felt brave, but it felt like the sun had come out, and that just seemed to express something about how the work felt, and I think it's because I felt a little bit freer because we weren't in the country and in the isolated anymore. I felt like I was part of a bigger world where I could just be. It did. It just felt right, and the work felt right as it went along. Yeah. So,
like, the expression of you saying what's in your head right now, are they like, I guess, timeline-wise expression of the lessons that you have now,
Yeah.
or like a collection of like memories and experiences that have brought you to it?
well, I think they are mostly what's happening in my head now. I think it comes from the moment of actually being in the moment of what's happening. But I do think that there is memory or a collection, and sometimes making a work allows, like I find it very healing to make it, which, it is healing. It's quite, I find it, it's not cathartic, but it is a putting out there of something that allows me to feel, I don't know, freer, I guess. Or so they are all tangled up with what is happening now. But I do draw on memory, and that without meaning that, yeah. So I don't go. It is now. I don't go back and go what was happening. Yeah. No, it's now. Yeah. Because I feel like I'm sort of standing in it and being there doing it. Yeah. Does that answer your question? I do get waffly, and I do go on and on, so please tell me to shut up. Yes. I love you. You're so darling. I'm so tickled. I feel it's tears.
I think that probably original. There's about 20 works here. There's about 20 people. You shouldn't go home without.
Oh, you're very darling. Thank you. Thank you. Because I hope they feel like that. But thank you. You got a beauty.
Does anybody have a question for Miss?
Myf, where do you find your stuff? The blankets?
Oh, look, my first pink blanket was actually, because I do like old things, like it's like the signage. I had these old pink Onka Parinka, blankets that were pale pink. They were sort of a bit thread. They were my grandmother's, and they felt a bit thin. And I think when I was looking, it was, I think the thing about COVID, although it was absolutely awful, it allowed some people a period of space and time where there was you actually couldn't do other things. There was no distractions to a point. And if you were lucky enough to be someone who made things, it actually gave you a little quiet period where you actually had time to experiment. And I had been frustrated by the clay and the period of time that it took to make a work. And I wanted to feel like my whole body was involved in making something. It wasn't, I felt like I was making a lot with my fingers and my hands, and it was getting really little. And so I thought, bugger it, I'm going to chop up a blanket and I'm going to make something. And what happened was that the actual blankets felt really nice. And although it's nothing like clay, it still had that kind of tactility to it that felt really good. And it sort of felt like an extension of me, and I could cut it out and play with it, and there was a spontaneity, and I could just stitch it. I don't want to be neat, I just want to stitch. And I think I wanted my body to be involved in the process, not this kind of head-hand thing. And so all the blankets, I just keep searching for them, and Idris Murphy's wife Glenys would bring me old blankets, and the material itself feels really good. And that's how, and also, I don't know, I just quite like, I like older things. I like their shapes and everything. And so it just felt nice to play with them.
Anyone else have a question for this?
I feel like I've really waffled on. I sort of have actually. I've sort of said not lots, but. Do you think? There's usually a lot of hand stuff. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.